During an interview with CBC this past summer, something that resonated with me was the fact that you said that you experienced racism. And that changed you, that you didn't feel like you belonged when you were growing up here in Windsor. How do you feel that that experience has really shaped you to get to this point to who you are today?
Well, one of the things I have to say is that I had an incredible childhood at the same time. I mean, I loved growing up here in Windsor. But like many kids, I faced discrimination and I faced bullying. And it's not a singular experience to just me. I know many kids have faced it for various reasons. But what happened when I was called out for, things about my skin color being dirty and I don't take showers because of that, or people saying things about my hair being long, getting that sense of not belonging or that there's something wrong with me made me become more sensitive to the realities that other people face. So many Canadians feel like they don't belong or feel like there's something wrong with them because of the message that's been sent, and whether that's based on people being discriminated on their gender or their sexuality or their race. These are struggles that far too many Canadians face. And for me, what it did is it allowed me to step outside of my own experiences and realize that I'm not alone in the sense of feeling that way. And in fact, many Canadians feel that way. And it's given me a lot of motivation to build a society or work towards a society that is truly inclusive, where no one is left behind, where no one faces discrimination. One of the things I talked about also is the fact that I was stopped by the police just because of the way I looked, not because of any evidence or any objective criteria. And being stopped by the police multiple times throughout my life, as a young person growing up and as a university student and as a law student, that also gives you a feeling like there's something wrong with you. And that's why I really want to build towards a society that sees that no one is stopped because of the color of their skin. They're stopped because of evidence-based criteria or objective criteria.
Jagmeet, being the first ethnically diverse leader of a major Canadian political party, what do you hope to bring to the party and really Canadian politics as a whole?
Well, I have to acknowledge that I'm only here today because of those who came before who broke barriers. People that took on a leadership role at a time when they weren't represented. And so I think about Rosemary Brown, the first woman from African descent to be elected as a provincial elected official, and then went on to run for leadership of the party. I think about Jenny Kwan, the first Asian woman to be elected as a city councillor, MLA, cabinet minister, and then MP in British Columbia. I'm only here today because of those who broke barriers before me, and I hope that in my position I can inspire a whole host of new leadership, new leaders that never saw themselves reflected in their own field and can start to imagine themselves as leaders in any field they want.
Coming from the area here in Windsor, for a number of years, what do you think, coming back after kind of doing the tour of force today, what do you think the major issues, in your opinion, here are in the city?
Well, right now we're in Sandwich Town, and I actually spent some time working in this community in a community health center that used to be located in Forster, the high school, Sandwich West Community Health Center. And the health center did phenomenal work, and I got to really experience this community. And there were struggles, but there was a certain vibrancy. And now seeing as a result of buildings being bought up, homes being bought up, and then being torn down, there's been a significant negative impact to this community, and that's a struggle. Seeing this massive infrastructure potential build here, the Ambassador Bridge and with the Gordie Howe Bridge, there's all this investment being made here, but there's no investment in the community. And that's why today what Brian Massey is bringing forward, our MP, a local MP in the area, is talking about a community benefit program or fund that would actually provide a benefit to local communities anytime there's infrastructure builds. That's something that's really important. I think that's a massive issue. I think I saw the city during the time when times were great with respect to the automotive sector, and then there was a downturn, and that was quite difficult. And now there's a bit of a resurgence, and that really excites me. I really have a soft spot in my heart for Windsor, and seeing things go well and seeing this new excitement. I did a tour of downtown Windsor, and seeing the resurgence of the core, new entrepreneurship and businesses and restaurants gives me a lot of hope. I think the big struggle is jobs, and particularly given the fact there was a sector that was employing a lot of people before and now isn't. There's got to be a diversification of the type of jobs that people can get. Investments in our education system are vital. I spoke with some scientists today, and they talked about how important it is to continue our kind of internationally leading program that used to invest so much in research publicly, that's a program that actually creates new innovators. And I want to see that investment at the federal level continue and actually be stronger so that we can actually create the climate for more entrepreneurship here in Windsor.
Out of all the parties you could have chosen, why New Democrat?
That was easy for me. I wasn't partisan growing up, but for me, I had two really big criteria. What party could advance the interests of everyday people? People that need that representation, people that face struggles. And so for me, there was really only one answer to that. And the second issue was human rights. I've been a long-standing advocate for human rights. I don't think you can pick and choose when it comes to human rights. You have to defend the rights of all people, and that's something I fundamentally believe in. As a lawyer, I did a lot of work on issues of protecting the charter rights that we all should be guaranteed. And on those issues of human rights and defending the rights of everyday people, New Democrats, it was the best option.
Tell me about what you see as your vision for the NDP going into the next election.
Well, we're in opposition right now, so naturally we're going to oppose certain things. So we'll oppose some of the ethics, questionable activities of the Minister of Finance, which may not meet the legal definition of a conflict of interest, but certainly meet the appearance of a conflict, which really erodes our trust in the institutions of democracy. Things like the Environmental Commissioner saying that we're not actually achieving our goals in terms of reducing emissions, and a government that's talking about precarious employment and saying get used to unstable work. We'll oppose these things, and things like the Paradise Papers, which talk about the wealth and the powerful folks having that access to power and not really paying their fair share. But beyond just opposing, I hope to propose, and beyond proposing, I want to inspire people. Think about what we can build together at a time when there's so much divisive politics in the South, when there's a sense of being let down with a lot of promises that were made, like electoral reform. I want people to dream bigger. When they're being told not to dream anymore, I want them to dream bigger, and I want to envision what that Canada would look like, a Canada where we expand our social programs to include pharmacare, we expand our democracy to have proportional representation, where we actually deal with reconciliation and actually implement a environmental regulations and climate change strategy that actually reduces our emissions. That's the type of Canada I want to build.
One thing that's built Canada, specifically this area, for so long has been the automotive sector, the manufacturing sector. The NAFTA talks continue. There's a lot of concern behind that. Do you have concerns for the NAFTA talks going forward, and what would you like to see come out of those talks, specifically for Windsor-Essex being such an automotive hub in a border town?
Well, we need to protect the jobs here, and there's got to be a strong automotive strategy in those NAFTA discussions. We've got Tracy Ramsey, our critic, on the file, who's doing a phenomenal job to advance those interests. She's got a long history working in the automotive sector as well, so she understands those issues. For me, listen, I think that trade agreements can't just be about free trade, they need to be about fair trade. Fair trade means we develop a fair level playing field. So we ensure that there's similar rights with respect to the environment and to labor conditions in jurisdictions that we have agreements with. So until we have similar labor rights and conditions in Mexico and similar environmental regulations in Mexico, we're not going to have one, fairness for the folks of Mexico, but also we're not going to have an ability to compete at a fair level with jobs here in Canada and jobs in Mexico. So we need to make sure that level field is played, or that playing field is level. We also need to make sure, though, that our trade agreement protects Canadian interests, puts the people's interests first. We've seen too much the interests have been focused on those who are wealthy and powerful, not on everyday Canadians.
One of the big issues, too, is drug abuse and drug addiction here in Canada. You've said that drug addiction is not necessarily a criminal justice issue, it's a social issue. So what would you do differently than the current government to tackle this head on and make some headway?
Well, two things. First off, when it comes to the opioid crisis, it's a crisis. It's gripping the lives of Canadians across our country. We're on track to seeing 3,000 Canadians die this year alone, and that's tragic, that's heartbreaking. What we're doing is not dealing with the issue. So I would present two solutions. One, we need to declare this a public health emergency under the Emergency Act. Imagine we had a Zika virus outbreak and 3,000 people were going to die from that. We would have mobile centers set up everywhere. We would invest money into saving lives. We're not doing that, and we need to do that. There's overdose prevention sites that are actually saving lives, but they're not getting the funding and the support and the legal framework they should have to do their life-saving work. The second thing is, I would adopt the Portugal model. The Portugal model was they initially spent 80% of their money, like we do, on criminalization, meaning arresting people, prosecuting them through the courts, and then finally incarcerating people, putting them in jail. And then 20% on rehabilitation. They switched that around and put their priorities on 80% of their resources on rehabilitation, harm reduction, and support services, and 20% on criminalization. As a result, what happened is they saved lives. There was less drug use. We have the evidence. Why don't we do that here in Canada? I think we can do it, and we need to do it.
Okay, one last thing before I let you go. You strike me as an individual in the same reins as, say, how Prime Minister Trudeau reaches out to the people. He's accessible. He's talking to people. In 2017, do you attribute the new age politician to really reach out to people and to connect with them on social media and being accessible 24/7?
I think it's important. I think that we're in an era where people want to get to know their politicians and they want to feel that authenticity. They want to feel that the people are real that are trying to lead the country. So I want to be someone that is accessible, that communicates with the people that I want to represent, speaks with them, hangs out with them, gets to know people. And that's why it's so important for me right now to do this tour across Canada. I want to get to know the issues that matter, and I want to spend time with the people I want to represent. And I'm looking to becoming the next Prime Minister of Canada, and I can only do that with the support of Canadians.
And really quickly, what does your Canada look like if you are Prime Minister?
Well, it's a country that where everyone can realize their dreams, where we build a just and inclusive country for all, where we don't see things like the Paradise Papers and the Panama Papers that, those who are powerful and wealthy, they get off and don't contribute their fair share, and the rest of us have to pay our fair share. I want a Canada that's just, where no one is discriminated based on the color of their skin, where we expand our healthcare system and make it stronger by including pharmacare for everyone, as well as dental care. I want to see electoral reform happen where people can see that their votes matter. If you vote, and I want never there to be an issue of strategic voting or vote splitting. I want people to feel that if they vote, their vote is counted, and that proportion of their vote sees that their voice is heard in Ottawa. I want to build a better country, and I'm looking forward to doing it.